charged comments about Luol Deng. CEO Steve Koonin sent a letter to fans apologizing for the events of the past week on Saturday. Carmelo spoke out on the topic Saturday morning and slammed the franchise. As a player, as an athlete, we're looking for a job. We're trying to find a place where we can move our family, we can make our family comfortable, or we can be comfortable in a comfortable environment. But those comments right there, we would never look at. I'm speaking on behalf of all athletes. We would never look at a situation like that. I don't care what it is. All right. Stephen A., what is expected from the fallout of the Hawks situation?
Well, I think what you can expect ultimately is Danny Ferry to depart from the Atlanta Hawks organization. CEO and co-owner Steve Koonin has been incredibly supportive of him, although he embraced Danny Ferry taking a leave of absence. In the end, no matter what heat he's trying to ward off, you're going to see the locals in Atlanta make enough noise to force his ouster. I think one of the things, Skip, that's not being mentioned enough is that there's an agenda that's taking place, and I'm not opposed to the agenda, just how it's being handled. You clearly have black civil rights activists and others that are in Atlanta that are really, really making a push for minority ownership. They want Barry Levinson, who is on the way out because of the sensitive email that was exposed from him dating back a couple of years ago. He's about to sell his ownership stake, which the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver, supports. And as a result, you've got folks down there in Atlanta that want black ownership, and you have folks throughout this nation that are in support of more minority representation within the ownership group, the NBA's Board of Governors, because at this particular moment in time, the only black face from an ownership perspective associated with an NBA franchise happens to be that of Michael Jordan and no one else. You've got an individual like Junior Bridgman. He comes to mind. He owns a Wendy's chain. He's worth over $600 million, and he's been pursuing ownership for an NBA franchise for quite some time. In the foreseeable future, we don't know whether expansion is going to take place, and if it is going to take place, it's perceived or it's thought to be in Europe as opposed to another team in the States, say Seattle getting a franchise or Louisville or somebody like that. And so as a result of that, you have some people within the black community that's concerned because you want another black owner within professional sports, particularly the NBA. Having said all of that, I'm still alarmed at this stuff with Danny Ferry, and rather than using my words, again, I think he needs to go because he made a mistake and the locals are not going to support him. I do not think he should go because he's a racist. I think he made a mistake, and I don't view him as a racist, and I have a problem with people who's trying to label him that way. But before I give it to you, Skip, I'd like to read you something. This is from Dr. Harry Edwards. You know who that is. He sent me an email over the weekend, and the email talked about for that man's job to be threatened over that incident is outrageous. Listen to these words, Skip. If we are going to relegate people to the ranks of the unemployed and unemployable because they say stupid / unfortunate / poorly stated things, there are some dark days ahead. With the alternative media feeding this frenzy, with millions of hits in the social media firing and fueling the frenzy, and with the mainstream media legitimizing the frenzy, we are degenerating into, quote, an electronic lynch mob. That is my concern. These are the kind of things that we need to guard against. And I think in the case of Danny Ferry, I agree and stand with the commissioner of the NBA by simply saying he made a mistake by reading what he read on the scouting report. But it was on the scouting report. He shouldn't be labeled a racist and he shouldn't lose his job. But nevertheless, that doesn't mean he should be in Atlanta. He still should have a career in the NBA as an executive. And if he doesn't, it shouldn't be because of this.
I'm not sure I'm with you on this one. I thought J.A. Adonde wrote a great piece for ESPN.com over the weekend in which he basically said the NBA needs to get to the bottom of this. That's basically what I said last week. I'm so uncomfortable with how comfortable Danny Ferry was reading this what I think is a racist reference. He's got some African in him.
And that's not a bad thing, is what he said.
But why the racial identification to make this point? I don't know what African had to do with this. So That's so inflammatory. I don't think that requires lynch mob mentality to get to the bottom of. I just think we need to get to the bottom. So if I'm understanding Danny Ferry's position correctly, he says that those words came from a member of another organization in the NBA, and that he was just quoting that man from that organization. I don't know anything about which organization. I assume it would have to be one for which Luau played.
Cleveland.
That's
what I'm hearing.
You're hearing Cleveland because it could be the Bulls or it could be Cleveland, okay?
I'm hearing Cleveland.
All right, so I would like to know if, in fact, that quote came from someone in Cleveland's hierarchy. Is it possible they were Danny's words? It could have been Danny Ferry's words. I don't know that. He says they were other words. I just don't think we should give him a pass, Stephen A., for that reference because it was really way out of bounds.
Skip Bayless, if you don't mind, I'd like to add this. I'm not giving him a pass. I understand that that's not something he should have read. I understand that in all likelihood it's going to cost him his job. I understand that in the climate that exists within Atlanta, I have been on the record saying he needs to go. He has to go. What I'm saying is he has to go because he made a mistake that the locals are not going to forgive him for. He shouldn't be universally labeled a racist because he made that mistake. Because here's the problem. As a black person, we got to stop acting like other folks make mistakes, but we don't. If you open that Pandora's box where Danny Ferry has to go, you got black players. You've got black coaches. You've got black executives. I'm sorry. What's going to be opened with your Pandora box? What I'm saying is I want to make sure that I leave some wiggle room for people from my community, from other minority communities as a whole. If we make that mistake, we can stand up and ask for forgiveness and somebody can be receptive to that. But when we're so dogmatic in our approach to be so quick to get rid of somebody because they made a mistake, you are now closing the door on the wiggle room that you may need someday in order to get compassion and forgiveness from somebody else. That's my issue.
Okay.
Well said. But what do you think? No?
I hear you. I do hear you. But you said in the climate in Atlanta. See, I would like to think that this should be an issue in the climate in San Antonio and Los Angeles and Portland and Chicago and any other NBA city. Well, I get it, but I know what you mean. I just think, let's not just say, oh, just because it's in Atlanta, this is wrong.
But I only said that because Barry Levinson and them pointed out that 54% of Atlanta is black, 70% of his audience is black, 90% of the patrons in the club is black. That's the only reason I brought up Atlanta in that context.
I'm with you. Okay. Tricky issue, but Danny Ferry on indefinite leave, but you think he's out.
Well, he can't come back to Atlanta.
All right.
I just don't think he should be prohibited from ever being an executive because of this.
We've had a lot of tricky issues today, fellas.
Ooh, have we?
I want to talk about food. I want to laugh.
Talk about food?
I want you guys to make fun of each other. I want to get back to the good old days. Remember? No? Okay.
I thought this was a good old day.
We don't run from anything. It don't matter.
We got it.
Whether it's serious or fun, we're going to do what we do.
We're going to do a little bit of both. Coming up next, folks, RG3 got some good news about his injury. We will tell you about that after the break.